Oh man, it has been a minute since I've done this podcast, and between then and now, um, I've seen quite a few movies, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. This is episode 18 of The Jet.
Creep on in, on in, on in. Whoa. See, I'm riding high. Whoa. Kind of broke this evening, y'all. So all I got is fire. I got fire. Player, give me some brew and I might just chill. But I'm the type that
That song is a reference to the movie Us, which came out this past weekend, crushing it at the box office for a horror movie. The song's called "I Got Five on It" by Looniz. I think that's how you say it, Loonies. So yeah, that I guess this song technically makes this episode explicit. I think this is the second explicit episode of The Jet. The first one because it was because of the song Venom from the movie Venom, sung by Eminem, which of course is explicit. So yeah, we're gonna talk about Us. We're gonna talk about Captain Marvel. Gonna speculate about Endgame a little bit. Just going over a few things on episode 18. And so our last episode was part one of the What If series, or something me and my friend are working on, me and Dallin. And we're talking about movies that never got made. And like the Justice League movie that got canceled, the Nicolas Cage Superman, all that good stuff. And next time we're talking about the Bill Murray Batman, the Office spinoff that never happened, bunch of stuff. But that's next episode. Well, hopefully next episode. This is just like a normal old episode of me talking about movies. So sit back and listen up. So first I want to talk about Captain Marvel. I'm a few weeks late here to post like a Captain Marvel review, but I'm going to talk about it. So box office opening weekend, Captain Marvel makes $153 million, and as of right now, overall, domestic here in America, it has made $327 million, and foreign, it's made almost $600 million. So yeah, opening weekend, it did 153 mil. Us did 70 mil opening weekend, but that's a horror movie, and that's hard to do. So like 70 million for Us opening weekend is a big deal, because horror movies never open that big. So anyways, yeah, Captain Marvel. I feel like one of the reason Marvel is crushing it is because usually, when you watch a Marvel movie, they're really good at getting you emotionally connected to the characters. A lot of the characters, we've been watching them in movies for, 7+ years. So that's almost like cheating, where it's not because they've earned it, but like, but for a movie with all new characters, I found myself really caring and not being bored during this movie. It was received like a Marvel movie, which is good, but a lot of people were like, yeah, it's good, but it wasn't like anything amazing. I thought it was amazing, but yeah, a lot of my friends are just kind of like, yeah, like, it's good. It was a Marvel movie. I don't know. But I don't know why. I just really really dug this movie. And well, I do know why. It's because it had a good plot and great writing. And of course the special effects were good. We're never worried about that. with Marvel. This movie, much like Wonder Woman, 2 years ago, had a lot of cultural weight to it. Lots of girl power. A lot of feminists actually found a lot of this movie kind of annoying, like too on the nose, like felt kind of patronized, and they felt like it was too obvious. Like, I don't know. I feel like when it comes to movies that have diversity, I feel like a really good example is Star Wars: The Force Awakens, because it's not about how Rey is a woman, she just is. It's not about how Finn is black, he just is. Because when there's a movie with, a bunch of white guys, it's not about how they're white guys. Unless it's, like the Expendables. But with, with certain movies where it's like feminists feel like, oh, like she's a cool girl and she fights, isn't that crazy? They feel kind of like patronized, which it's really, it's really easy to roll your eyes and be like, okay, well, what do you want? You don't have enough girls in movies. Then we give you that, and then you don't like that either. But I get what they're saying. The song "I'm Just a Girl" by No Doubt is in the movie, and a lot of people thought that was really cheesy. I loved it. I thought it was great, and I was having a great time. And I get what they're saying about feeling like it's too on the nose or feeling like they're patronized, but I think it's super fun to celebrate a badass female lady. But yeah, so I loved this movie, and that it's nothing new. The whole, like, if there's a superhero movie, there's a certain point where they're down and they have to get up. And it's nothing new, but the way that they presented that in this movie, this isn't I'm not going to have any spoilers, but I'll say that the way they executed that was they showed this like montage of different times in her life where people were telling her that she wasn't good enough or what have you, and she had to get up, and it shows her getting up like at different times in her life. And I thought that was really cool and probably the best part of the movie for me. But some people didn't like that. A lot of people didn't like the way that Nick Fury loses his eye. I thought it was perfect and I loved it, but a lot of people didn't. If you haven't seen it, you'll see what I mean. But because it alludes to Nick Fury having to have lied about how he lost his eye. And I'm like, okay, he's Nick Fury. Like, you're saying that he never lies or bends the truth to manipulate people? That's perfect for his character. Anyways, so the end credit scene from this movie is my favorite end credit scene in any of these movies, because you always think / want that it's going to be something really important that alludes to the next movie. And then a lot of times it's just this funny little joke. But this time, the end credit scene actually was really important, and I was really excited about that. And then there's a second end credit scene that's kind of more your typical Marvel funny end credit scene thing. I don't really do rating scales with movies just because it's too complicated, but Captain Marvel is definitely up there. It's not quite up there with The Dark Knight and Infinity War, but it's really close. Okay, so onward. Us. This freaking movie. Okay, so for a long time I've been saying that the horror genre is kind of broken and dead, and like somebody needs to come save it. We need like a revolution with horror movies. And I think it's finally come. So Get Out was, in my argument, more of a thriller. It's a great movie. I'm not knocking it by saying it's a thriller. But this movie is, in my opinion, more of a straight up horror movie. And there was some discussion about this, and so like a week before it came out, Jordan Peele, a week before Us came out, Jordan Peele, the director, said on Twitter, he just said Us is a horror movie, period. Like, just straight up, like, leveled that argument. And this movie, I would say it does have a lot of humor. That's Jordan Peele. I would say like a Marvel movie amount of laughs, which to horror movie purists, who are a fan of all the horror movies of the 80s and all the classics, I could see why they wouldn't like how much humor is in this movie. It didn't bother me at all. Does it make the movie a little less scary? Maybe. But I mean, I'm not complaining. I didn't really have a problem with that. And, because they're funny. That's the thing. If you're going to like put jokes and comic relief in your movie, make them funny. and this is important. This movie doesn't like push all of the comedy into one character. Like, that's something that I hate when writers do, is when they'll shove all the comic relief into one character. Like on National Treasure, how Riley is supposed to be like the funny guy, and he's not even that freaking funny. I freaking hate that. So, there's not like one funny guy. I guess you could argue that the dad, the guy Winston Duke plays, I guess you could argue he's the funniest or something, but it's not like, here's your funny character, everybody else is serious. It's not like that. So, that's good. Anyways, so when I saw the trailer to this movie a few months ago, so I know that there's a lot of talk these days about not wanting to know a lot, not wanting a bunch of trailers, but I just appreciate the art of a good trailer. And when there's like a song in the trailer that's like, the way that I Got Five on It, that song is like orchestrated throughout the trailer, is so good. It's like one of the best trailers I've ever seen. And in a trailer, for a movie like this that isn't a sequel, that isn't a reboot, it's not a spin-off, it's not anything other than somebody's creation, trailers are actually really important. They have to do a lot of work that, say, trailer for a Marvel movie doesn't have to do, because they have to win you over, into a world you've never been in. So, but yeah, the way that song is orchestrated, not only in the trailer, but also at a certain point in the movie, oh man, like, music is so important to me in a movie, and this movie does a really good job. So cast, you got your main character, the mom, her name is Lupita Nyong'o. She's in Black Panther, and she absolutely murders it in this movie. She should get, I'm not even kidding, she should get an Oscar. She should at least be in that conversation, for real. And Winston Duke, who is also in Black Panther, M'Baku. You got Elizabeth Moss, which in the trailer, I feel like the trailer kind of wants to mislead you and make you think that she's the bad guy. And I'm not gonna like say much more than that, but yeah, I feel like the trailer kind of made it to look like, oh, okay, creepy white lady's the bad guy. But yeah, so this movie, this movie's like Stanley Kubrick and Steven Spielberg and Stephen King had a baby. Like, I just kept thinking of The Shining, not because of the story or plot or anything, or the characters, but because of, like, I just kept thinking of Kubrick. Lots of, like, beautiful, just wide-angle shots. The first, like, couple minutes of this movie, when you see the little girl just, like, walking through the carnival, in just the wide-angle shots is just beautiful. And the things that scare me in a movie, so this movie, it's not, I'll just say it's not that scary of a movie. But it doesn't matter, because that's not really what it's about. It's about making a good movie. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's really creepy, because the thing I want to say is, the thing that creeps me out is little subtle things, like clues, like stuff you can see in the background. That's the stuff that freaks me out. That's what gets me going. And this movie has lots of that. And just does a great job of that. But yeah, it just reminds me of like The Shining with all the subtle hints and clues. Something where you just feel like everything means something. Even if it doesn't, you feel like it does. I will say I think it's funny when certain movies that are like well written, or like have a huge fan base or a cult following, people will kind of act like every little thing means something, when it's not always the case. And the creator of said thing is just like, sure, I'll go with that. Yeah, I totally did that on purpose. But no, yeah, this movie does have a lot of stuff like that. And people love that. People love Easter eggs. People love clues. People love theories that you can debate. And I will say, if you haven't seen this movie, to go ahead and see it soon, because there are things that people are going to be talking about. But then there's this other secret thing that I've only heard some people talk about, and I totally think it's true, but you don't know what I'm talking about, so I'll move on. But yeah, this movie, it doesn't. I'll go ahead and say it's about clones. It's like Attack of the Clones kind of thing, and I'll say this movie doesn't feel the need to explain everything in like a science fiction kind of way, or in a way that justifies the plot or anything like that, which in my opinion makes it more creepy. It's kind of like I guess you could compare it to Lost, like the first 2 seasons of Lost, where it's like, who are the others? Where did they come from? What is going on? What's Dharma? That kind of thing. That's how this movie feels. I'm not saying this movie feels like Lost. I'm just saying that it reminds me of that, in the sort of mysterious kind of, the mysterious unknown, like fear of the unknown. That's what this movie thrives on. I'll say that this movie is not as much of a social commentary as Get Out was. Jordan Peele has said that this movie is about America and has things to say, but I like that it's not in your face, or it's not obvious. I like that the message it has is subtle as well, as to what it might have to say about America or immigration or what have you. Some people might be bothered by I don't know. I haven't heard anybody that didn't like Get Out that saw it. But I mean, I don't know. I didn't feel like it was like a bonk on the nose, like white people are bad. It's not like that. But yeah, have you ever seen a movie where you just saw it and then you just thought about it for days? That's this movie. And almost everybody I've talked to that has seen this movie wants to go see it again. And that is how you do crazy numbers at the box office. Because all the movies that, hold record box office numbers are movies that people went and saw again and again. Titanic crushed it because that movie was a movie that teenage girls went and saw, and then they wanted to go take their friends to see it, and then they wanted to go see it with their other friends, and that just made a ton of money. So yeah, for a horror movie, this movie is doing very well, and I would like to see this movie get some Oscar attention, because horror fans have been really mad about their movies being ignored by the Academy for decades. And so even if you're like a horror film purist who doesn't like this movie, it could at least get your genre some well-deserved praise, at the very least. But yeah, this movie, it felt like something smart. It felt like something big. It didn't feel like your average, made for teenagers cash grab, like The Purge and all that kind of stuff. This movie is on a whole other level than that. So there's a recent kind of rumor about Avengers Endgame. It's rumored that Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be in this movie. And so I did some research on, I looked at IMDb and all of the acting credits and things. And there are some characters, and this is interesting. And if you don't want to know anything about Endgame, you might fast forward through this. But there are certain characters who have been cast who have the name. One is 1970s lab scientist, and then another one is 1970s car girl, whatever that means. And so I'm thinking there's going to be some kind of scene taking place in the 70s, which kind of makes sense because people are speculating time travel with this movie. And then there's a woman from the Jabari tribe from Black Panther who we don't know yet. And yeah, it's rumored that Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be in it. And my guess, if I had to put money on it, I'd say Jake Gyllenhaal shows up as Mysterio in an end credit scene, because I think whatever end credit scene is going to be alluding to Spider-Man Far From Home. That's what I would say. But what if Mysterio actually plays a big part in Endgame? That could really be interesting. It's crazy, it's crazy how little we know about this movie for how big it is. The only other movie like this I can think of that we knew so little about going into, I guess, Infinity War. But I think Infinity War had more in the trailers than this movie does. But I guess The Force Awakens, second time I'm mentioning them on this episode. It's easy to forget, but when we went into The Force Awakens, we didn't know jack shiz. Like, the marketing campaign for The Force Awakens was really good. And I feel like the marketing campaign for this movie is even better. Like, we haven't seen a lot, and that's great. I love that. And the trailers are still good. They're still fun. They still get you pumped, but they just don't show a lot. And I think movie studios are getting a lot better at that, because people get bugged when, people put everything in the movie trailer. So, looking at you, Universal and Warner Brothers. So yeah, 2019, off to a good start. We had Spider-Verse. That was technically 2018, but the past couple months, man, so we get Spider-Verse, we got Captain Marvel, got Us, about to get Endgame. Just it's just a good time for movies, man. And, except for Aquaman, which somehow that movie gets a pass, but it's terrible. Aquaman was awful, but, a lot of the movies coming out are good. So, yeah, I think after Endgame comes out, I'm going to rewatch the Red movies. Because as much as I love Marvel and the Avengers and all of this stuff, sometimes I just have to go back and watch like a grown-up movie, like Good Will Hunting or something. But if you want a good, solid, grown-up action movie that's like still fun, but it's not like a superhero movie, but it's still an action movie, go watch Red. Red 1 and Red 2. Those are great movies. Anyways, so I think that about does it for episode 18. So yeah, thanks for listening. We got more coming. I know it's been slow lately, but I got more coming. So if you listen to this show, share it, tell your friends about it. Go check out my brother's podcast, 1990 What. Him and my buddy Mike, they have a hilarious podcast dedicated to 90s music and all things 90s movies, 90s video games. So if you want a good, not politically correct podcast with some funny dudes, go check out 1990 What. Right now. Go. Now. Right now. Anyways, until next time, this has been the Jet.